Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cámara Peruana de Comercio Exterior, and welcome to our daily lectures. Well, in this case, our English lectures. Remember that CAMEX has lectures every day during every hour of the day, different topics, interesting topics, and very helpful topics. Remember that our English classes are Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 to 10. Okay. Again, I want to wish everyone a great week. I hope that everyone has a great beginning of the week and everyone had a great weekend. Please remember that COVID is still among us, so be very careful. Be cautious when you go out. Remember to always wash your hands constantly. Collocate hand sanitizer every time you touch new surfaces or when you touch money. Avoid touching your faces. If you need to go out, remember when you come back home, disinfect your shoes, disinfect your house. Remember that we need to take care of our loved ones and avoid getting them sick. Okay. This second wave is very strong. Many people are getting sick, and many. I don't think. Well, I'm sure that everyone knows someone who has gotten sick, or someone who is in the hospital now or has recovered from COVID. So please take all the necessary precautions. Okay, this is still not over. It might seem like everything is over, but no, it's not. Okay. I want to also take the opportunity to wish my relatives who are in Trujillo who are sick. I hope they get well pretty soon. Um, and happy birthday to family that I have in Trujillo too. Okay. Well, I remember that I will follow your comments and your conversations here through the Zoom application, but also through the through Facebook. Okay. Remember that I always follow the conversation or I follow the meeting through Facebook. Okay. So remember that I will answer your questions as soon as I can. Normally, for some reason, the messages are sometimes delayed, but I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. Okay. So being that said, I would like to begin our classes today. Today we're going to continue with the topic that we started the last class, kind words. Remember, if you don't know who I am, my name is Carlos Martinez Flores. I am an English instructor and speaking coach. I am a former team leader from Pacifico University, and currently I am an EFL teacher at Mater Purísima School in Miraflores. Okay. I want to wish everyone a great week, and let's begin. Okay, the last topic that we talked about the last class was this is the our greeting cards. We're going to close with that topic. We're going to also talk about international organizations, and here are some grammars about unfulfilled obligations and necessities. Okay, so let's begin. The first topic, like I said, was greeting cards. We talked about this the last class. For example, these are some types of greeting cards. We have funny birthday cards. For example, congratulations, you're always halfway to, and you double their age. Sentimental birthday cards, where you wish people happy birthday, but with sentiment, with feeling. Hope your special day brings you all that your heart desires. Then we have Christmas cards with expressions related to Christmas. Thank you cards. For example, thanks for feeding the cat while we were away. So we're thanking people for something they did for us. And wedding cards when people get married. Congrats and welcome to the family. Okay. Now here, um, saying this, I would like to, for example, here we have the same categories that I just mentioned, but now here are some examples. Which fits which? For example, thinking of you on this very special day, happy birthday, you are the best, wishing you a lifetime of happiness, happy birthday, old friend, hope you've been good this year. Okay, so let's see, which of these is an example of um, a funny birthday card template? Which of these is an example of a funny birthday card template? Which do you think? Mm? Very good. Happy birthday, old friend. That's an example of a funny birthday card. What about a sentimental birthday card, which is an example? Which of these is a sentimental or birthday card with feeling? Very good, very good. Thinking of you on this very special day. Excellent. What about a Christmas card, which is an example of a Christmas card? Which is an example of a Christmas card. Excellent, right? Ho, ho, hope you've been good this year. Very good. Now we have two. You are the best and wishing you a lifetime of happiness. Which one is a thank you card and which one is a wedding card or an example of a wedding card? Thank you card. Very good. You're the best. And finally, an example of a wedding card wishing you a lifetime of happiness. Okay, so these are templates that you can use when you send one of these examples of cards, you know, where whether it is a physical card or maybe through your whether through your social media accounts. That's another way. Okay. Now, we also mentioned the last class, we mentioned these, right? When somebody has a new baby, when we want to tell, when somebody was sick and we want to tell them to get well, Mother's Day, for example, a sympathy card when somebody is going through a difficult time and we want to say, express our sympathies. And an example, and someone which is very close, it's a Valentine's Day card. Okay, so for example, a new baby, we say, congratulations, you're going to be amazing parents. When somebody is sick, you're one tough cookie. Okay. Mother's Day, I'm so lucky to have you as a mom, but not as lucky as you are for having me as a child. Sympathy card, your son touched the lives of so many people. I'm glad I had the chance to know him as a friend. And Valentine's Day card, all you need is love, but a little chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. Okay. Now, again, the same activity as we did before. We have the different types of cards and we have some examples. Now we have a new baby card, the get well card, the Mother's Day card, sympathy card, and the Valentine's Day card. And we have the examples. You may not have given me life, but you are a huge part of mine. All you need is love, but a little chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. You are one tough cookie. Welcome to the world. So glad that you're finally here. I am sorry for your loss. So, which one is a new baby card? Which of these sentences do you think is relevant for the new baby card? Hmm? Very good. Very good. Welcome to the world. So glad that you're finally here. Very good. What about the get well card? Get well card? Very good. If you said you're one tough cookie, very good. Now, Mother's Day card, which is an example of a Mother's Day card. Excellent. You may not have given me life, but you're a huge part of mine. Now we have two more, sympathy card and Valentine's Day card. We have all you need is love, but a little hot chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. And I'm sorry for your loss. Which one is a sympathy card? Very good. I'm sorry for your loss. You know, when somebody passes away. And finally, Valentine's Day card. All you need is love, but a little chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. Okay. Very good. So this is a topic that we started talking about the last class. And now we're going to go into the new topic, which is international organizations. Okay, organizations that are dedicated to the well-being of people or countries in general. Okay, so first, I'm going to mention, for example, we have the United Nations, the UN. We have we have NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which has to do more with security. We have the group of the eight, okay, the G8. Then we have the World Trade Organization, okay. Then we have the World Bank. Then we have the World Health Organization, which is currently very trending, because of the pandemic. Okay, so we have 6 of international organizations, again, the United Nations. We're going to talk about these one by one in a bit. Then we have the UNICEF. We're going to talk about also the IMF, UNESCO, and finally the WWF. Okay, so these are some international organizations which we're going to talk about right now. So to begin with, we're going to talk about the IMF. The IMF was established in 1944, and it promotes world trade, okay, commerce. It has 184 member countries, headquartered in Washington, D.C. It works to improve the financial condition of its members countries, okay? So all the countries that are members of the IMF are helped by the IMF. Then it has to do with money, right? Then we have the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund. It has to do with animal preservation, right? The WWF was set up in 1961, and it's the world's largest conservation organization. Its main aim is to protect endangered animals in places where they live. Endangered means that they are in the possibility or in the brink of extinction. Okay, so we have the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, right? Then we have the World Health Organization. Like I said, it's very trendy right now because it talks about it, or they were the ones who in March declared the pandemic finally. The WHO is part of the United Nations. It promotes health matters worldwide and aims to raise medical standards and monitor diseases. Okay, so they monitor things that are happening around the world related to health. Then we have the UNICEF or United Nations Children's Fund. It was set up in 1947, and it works to improve the health and welfare, means that they are healthy, and of children and mothers in developing countries. Okay, so this has UNICEF is all around the world, and it belongs to the United Nations. Okay, and it's basically in charge of things related to the health of people's health and well-being. Then we have the UNESCO, okay, or the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. It began in 1946. It encourages countries to get together on matters such as education, culture, and science. Okay. Then we're also going to mention the World Bank. The World Bank is an international financial institution founded in 1944, which whose main purpose is to reduce poverty. It helps developing countries by giving them money or giving them loans. Okay, the difference with IMF, which is focused on trade, okay, on commerce. Then we have the World Trade Organization, or WTO, which is Swiss-based. That means that it is in Switzerland. It encourages international trade by establishing trade agreements, contracts between countries, with 142 member countries and consisting of more than 97 of the entire world trade. It propagates the international trade policies. Okay, so we have the WTO. And finally, we have the G8, or the group of 8, which is made of the world's leading industrial countries: Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, USA, and Russia. Okay, the world's leading industrial countries. The heads of the G8 countries meet each year to discuss global issues such as world poverty and security. Okay, and then we have the UN, or United Nations. The United Nations was basically, first it was the International League of Countries, and then it became the United Nations right after World War II. Most countries of the world, in total 181, are members. The General Assembly of the UN makes decisions about peacekeeping and human rights. Its main offices are in New York. We have had the luck that Javier Pérez de Cuellar twice elected its general secretary. And then finally we have NATO. NATO is also important, maybe to Peru not that much, but it's an important organization because it was founded in 1949. The foreign ministers of 10 countries signed the defense treaty, so it's basically about defense. The committed helping each other in the event of an attack. 26 countries are members. Basically, it's the U.S., North America, and basically almost all Europe and part of countries of Asia are its members, and they are in Belgium. Okay, and here are some of the flags that we mentioned before. Okay, related to these organizations. So again, let's go over them again. The first one is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which it helps to improve the financial countries of all the members that belong to it. Then we have the WWF, which takes care of endangered animals. Then we have the World Health Organization, or WHO, which is the UN institution for helping health and medicine. Then we have the UNICEF, which again from the UN, and it helps children and mothers who are in problems. Then we have the UNESCO, which is also from the UN, but has to do with education. The World Bank, a difference with the IMF, which helps its members. The World Bank helps all developing countries by giving them loans, okay, and money that you have to return. Then we have the WTO, or the World Trade Organization, which its main purpose is to increase or improve trade or commerce amongst countries. Then we have the G8, which is basically the leading countries, the 8 leading countries or most industrialized countries in the world. And again, they get together to talk about security and poverty. The United Nations, which is based in New York and has to do with security and human rights. And finally, NATO, which has to do with security between countries in America and in Europe. Okay, and these are its flags. Okay, so now what I want to do very quickly is we have these flags and we have the institution that they represent. Let's see if we can play a memory game. And let's see if we can remember. Can you match the flags with the organization? Hmm? Let's see. So let's see, this first flag, this light blue flag, it belongs to what? Which institution is this light blue flag? Do you remember? Yes, it belongs to the United Nations, right? It belongs to the UN, the United Nations. What about this flag with like the compass? Do you remember what organization it belonged to? Very good. It is NATO, right? North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's NATO. What about this one? Well, this is an easy one. The name is written on the flag. Very good. It's WHO. What about the next one? Again, the name is written on the flag. Very good. It's the World Trade Organization. The next one, again, it's written in the flag. Very good. The United Nations Children's Fund. And finally, The one that has to do with animals is the World Wildlife Fund. Very good. Okay, so this was just a review of international organizations that are important, like general culture or basic culture for most of us to know. Whether or not they're relevant for Peru or not, it's important to know who they are and what they do. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Now we're going to go into some grammar, okay, and some language. Unfulfilled obligations. Sometimes when you are supposed to do things, for example, you had let's say tomorrow I have an exam, okay, and I have to read, I have to study, right? But for some reason, I decide to connect on Netflix and I watch Netflix all evening until the wee hours of the morning. And when I notice my exam is at 7 a.m. and it's 6 a.m. and I've watched Netflix all morning and I don't pass my exam. So I should have studied, right? I shouldn't have watched TV so late. Okay, so when we want to talk about unfulfilled obligations or things you were supposed to do, we're going to use should have. Okay, we're going to use the grammar with should have. Should have is mainly used to give advice about past events. Okay, something that you didn't do or you did do. Okay, like I said, I should have studied. The reality is that I didn't study, or I shouldn't have watched Netflix all night. The reality is that I did watch Netflix all night. Okay, so we're going to use this grammar to express or to talk about things that 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 did not happen or did happen and weren't supposed to happen. Okay, so we should have them again mainly to give advice about past events. This is hypothetical. Okay, it's not real. Like I said, I should have studied. I can't do anything about it because I already didn't study. Okay, or I shouldn't have watched TV. I can't do anything about it because I already spent all night watching TV. Okay, what an ideal action was in the past, something that wasn't done. For example, your wife is running a big race tomorrow. Okay, your wife has a competition tomorrow, and you tell her you should go to bed early tonight. So this is your recommendation for now. Notice the difference. You should go, should go, should and the verb, right? You should go. This is my recommendation. You should go to bed. Or, for example, I have an exam. You should study. Okay, but in the morning, excuse me, but in the morning she comes downstairs and she looks exhausted. She stayed up late and watched TV. So she didn't rest, she didn't relax. So I say to her, you should have gone to bed earlier. Notice now we have should have and the past participle, okay? You should have gone to bed earlier. Again, should have and the past participle. You shouldn't have watched TV so late. Again, shouldn't have and the past participle, okay? So I'm telling her something that she didn't do or she did, okay? So again, she had a big race today and she should go to bed early, but she watched TV and she stayed late. So you should have gone to bed earlier. You shouldn't have watched TV so late. So notice the grammar, should have and the past participle, or shouldn't have and the past participle. If I say should have, that means that you didn't do something. If I say you shouldn't have, that means that you did something. Okay, remember, these are hypothetical ideas. Now, for example, you should have gone to bed earlier. Should have, past participle. Gone is the past participle of the verb go. You should have gone to the bed earlier. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. That means I said something. I shouldn't have drunk so much. Shouldn't have plus the past participle. That means that I drank too much and maybe now I have problems with the police or had a car accident. He should have scored there. He should have. Notice that for I, for you, for we, for they, should. He, she, it, should. No difference, right? Always have and the past participle. He should have scored there. I shouldn't have bought that jacket. So always should or shouldn't, always have, and the past participle. But again, when we say should have, that means that I didn't do something. When I say shouldn't have, it means that I did something, okay? So you should have gone to bed earlier. You should have gone to bed earlier. That means that I didn't go to bed early. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. That means that I said something bad. I shouldn't have drunk so much. I shouldn't have drunk so much. That means that I did drink too much. He should have scored there. He should have scored there. That means that he did not score. And I shouldn't have bought that jacket. I shouldn't have bought that jacket. That means that I did. Okay, so when we use should have means that you had an obligation, or you did it, or you didn't. Okay, very good. This is what should have. We can also use could have for unfulfilled obligations. But now the difference is, like you can see here, we use could have when we're talking about something that we had the possibility to do, but we didn't do it. Okay, so like I decided not to do it. Okay, for example, I could have gone to Newcastle University, but I went to Leeds instead. Okay, so I had the opportunity. I was in, but I decided to go to another place. Okay, this says that Newcastle accepted me, but I didn't go. Okay, I could have gone. I could have been, let's say, I could have been the president, but I decided not to participate in the elections. Okay, so we again we use this for something that we had. I mean, we decided not to do. Okay, we had all the opportunity, but we decided not to. This is when could have. But again, could have in the past participle. The last grammar was should have in the past participle. Remember, this is for, I mean, like something that you did or you didn't do. Okay. Understand? For example, if I say I should have gone, that means I didn't go. I shouldn't have gone, that means I went. Okay. But here, no, this is something that we could have done, but we decided not to do it. We decided not to do it. Okay. We also use could have for criticism, to criticize. Okay. For example, my friend threw a huge party, but only invited me after it started. I tell them, you could have invited me earlier. Okay. I'm telling you, I mean, why are you telling me now? Okay. So we use could have to express something that I mean, we had the opportunity, but we decided no. Or we could also use it to criticize. Okay. For example, let's say you got divorced. You can say, oh, I've not cheated, right? So I'm giving you a criticism. Now we also use this for the third conditional. Okay. Remember, third conditional are for hypothetical pasts. Um, I I could have got into any university in the world if I had applied. Okay, notice I could have got into any university in the world if I had applied. So if past perfect and could have in the past participle. This is a third conditional hypothetical past. We want to change the past, but we cannot. Remember, third conditional is a hypothetical past that we want to change, but we cannot. I could have got into any university in the world if I had applied, but I didn't apply, so I didn't enter. I could have picked up some milk if you had told me that you needed some. I could have picked up, okay? Could have picked up past participle if you had told me past perfect. So I could have picked up some milk, but I didn't if you had told me, but you didn't, okay? This is a hypothetical past, okay? Remember that we just talked about should have, could have. Now, the last one that we're going to talk about is would have. Would have is basically specifically for third conditional. Remember that a third conditional is an imaginary or hypothetical past, like I mentioned before. For example, if we had planted more trees, if we had planted, past perfect, we would have had more apples last summer. Would have in the past participle. So if we had planted more trees, but we didn't, we would have had more apples, but we didn't. Okay, so we are imagining a past, something that we did or didn't do. Remember, the rule for the conditional is used for an imaginary or hypothetical past. It is used for an imaginary or hypothetical past. The grammar is if plus the past perfect. And what is past perfect? Had plus the past participle. Had planted, had told, had gone, had scored. Um, well, this is had gotten sick, okay? And would have in the past participle. So I would have come if you had told me. If he had gone to Oxford University, I would have hated it. If Messi had scored, Barcelona would have gone. I would have gone to the wedding, but my son got sick. Okay? So we're talking about things that a hypothetical past. We're saying something that happened or something that happened or didn't happen and what we would have liked it to be. Okay? So this is the third grammar that we talked about we mentioned should have, then you mentioned could have, and then we mentioned would have. Remember, should have or shouldn't have are for things that we did or didn't do and we were supposed to, right? Could have are for things that we had the opportunity, but we decided not to do it, okay? I could have been the president, but I didn't study law, okay? And finally, would have basically used for, and we can also use could have for criticism when you want to criticize something. We use would have for the third conditional in imaginary or hypothetical past. We want to change something in the past, but we can't. For example, if I had not drunk so much, I wouldn't have had the accident, okay? If I had not drank so much, that means that I did. I wouldn't have had the accident, that means that I had the accident, okay? So remember, third conditional would have for imaginary or hypothetical situations. Very good. And now the last topic, as we mentioned before, obligations and necessities. When something is obligated, we have many forms of expressions and we're always going to use models. In this case, the model must, okay, to say something that is necessary. It is necessary. Must. We use must to talk about obligations. Remember, must are obligations. Often when we use must, the authority for the obligation comes from the person who is speaking. Okay, so I am telling you, you must study, you must respect, you mustn't use your cell phone. For example, you must do your homework every night because I say you must. You must stop smoking because I think it's a good idea. Remember that must is a modal verb. It means that it doesn't change the ending. For the same, I must, he must, you must, she must, we must for all. Okay, and it is also followed by the infinitive with no to. We never say must to go. No, I must go. He must to eat. No, he must eat. You must to learn. No, you must learn. You always use must without to. And it's the same for I must, you must, he must, she must, it must, they must, we must. Okay, and you must again. So we use it for obligations, but normally when I'm telling you what your obligation is, okay? So remember, we use must for obligations, and it's basically used when we want to talk about what I think you must do or what I think is good that you must do. Remember, must without to. Then we also use have to. Have to is very similar to must. Now, we can also use have to talk about rules and regulations. The authority obligation doesn't come from the person who's speaking. So normally, when we use have to, it's more like a law or a regulation that maybe the country, the city, or the school, or wherever you are, the university, when somebody else collocates an obligation, we use have to. For example, in Peru, you have to wear your seatbelt. In Peru, you have to pay your taxes, supposedly, okay? So these are regulations that the government or the city or the school or an institution obligates, okay? In England, you have to pay tax. We have to check everyone's ID, okay? So remember, must and have to are very, very similar. The difference is first, must with no to, have, yes, right? I must go, I have to go. You must study, you have to study. We must practice, we have to practice. They must learn, they have to learn. Now, where is the difference? If you want to find another difference, is that must is basically both of our obligations, but must is an obligation that I think is a necessity, that I think is correct. Have to is an obligation that normally is given to by an entity, by the city, by the government, by the school, by university. It's like a law, like a regulation, okay? Now, have to is like any other verb. If you want to make a question, you use do or does. Do we have to? Do you have to? If it's he, she, or it, does he have to? Does she have to? And if it's an obligation, I have to, he has to. You have to, she has to. They have to, it has to. The negative, I don't have to, he doesn't have to. They don't have to, she doesn't have to. We don't have to, it doesn't have to. So it follows the rule of any simple present verb, like we've practiced before, right? Do, does for questions, doesn't or don't for negatives, okay? Do you have to vote for the election? He doesn't have to wear a uniform to school, okay? Very good. Now, have got to is basically, I mean, if you want to find a difference, it's a little bit stronger than have to, and it's more used in British English. But it's basically the same as have to with a little bit more strength, okay? I have got to fill in this form. The deadline is tomorrow. She has got to study hard to pass the exam, okay? To make the questions in negative form, we use have or has, and the rule here is like in the present perfect. For example, I have got to go, I haven't got to go. He has got to go, he hasn't got to go. The question, have you got to go? Has he got to go? Okay, so the questions are like in the perfect tenses, okay? I have got, change, have you got? He has got, change, has he got? Okay, just change the position of the verb with the subject, okay? Again, they have got to study, change, have they got to study? She has got to practice, change, has she got to practice? Okay, so just change the position. And any question that begins with have or has is always yes or no, okay? Then we also we're going to learn need to. We use need to talk about what is necessary. Remember, obligation, necessity, difference. Example, you need to go to the hairdresser. Your hair is very long. She needs to go to the doctor. She gets headaches every day. Notice, you need, she needs. So this verb has two indications. You always with to, need to go. I need to go. We need to study. They need to practice. You need to read. He needs to run. She needs to learn. It needs to work. Okay, so that's the first one. Always with to. The second one is that again it follows all the grammatical rules as any present verb, simple present tense verb. He, she, or it, s. Okay, so I need to, he needs to. You need to, she needs to. We need to, it needs to. Okay, negative, don't or doesn't. I don't need to, he doesn't need to. Doesn't need. Doesn't needs? No. Doesn't need. Okay. Next, you don't need to. She doesn't need to. Okay. We don't need to. It doesn't need to. And then for questions again, do or does. Do I need to? Does he need to? Do you need to? Does she need to? Do we need to? Does it need to? Okay, so we just treat the same as on any present tense verb. Need to is I have to, you do, does to make the questions. Do you need to pass an exam? Does she need to get a job? Okay, very good. So this is what is referred to need to. Then when we want to say, this is now, here is the tricky part. When something is not an obligation, that means there's one thing when something is not an obligation and another one is a negative obligation. I'm going to explain that. For example, if I say obligation, I have to study. But when I say I don't have to study, that means it's not an obligation, it's an option, I decide. Okay? You don't have to study, but if you want, you can. Okay? But if I say you have to study, that's your only option. Okay? Remember that. When you say have to, you don't have an option. When you say don't have to, you decide yes or no, it's your decision. Okay, so but it's not an obligation, it's an option. To say that there's no obligation, we use don't or doesn't have to, or don't or doesn't need to. We can use them both. Examples: you don't have to bring food on the trip. If you want, yes. If you don't want, okay. She doesn't have to work in the evening. If she wants, yes. If she doesn't want, okay. You don't need to pay now. If you want, yes. You can pay later. If you want, no. They don't need to speak English in their job. I mean, but if they want, that's okay. So when we say don't have to or don't need to, it's not an obligation, it's an option. You can do it or not, nothing will happen. But when you say have to or mustn't or must, if you don't, something's probably going to happen. If I tell you you have to study and you don't, you're going to have a problem. If I tell you you mustn't smoke and you do, you're going to have a problem. Here, don't have to, no. You don't have to wear shoes. If you want, yes. If you want, no. Okay. Now, don't have to is not the same as mustn't. Okay, because mustn't is an obligation of something you can't do. For example, you mustn't smoke inside. It's not an option. I mean, you can't. You mustn't drink and drive. I mean, it's not an option. You can't. You don't have a problem. Okay. So, for example, you mustn't wear a suit to the office. It's a rule. You mustn't. I mean, you can't. Don't do it. But you don't have to wear a suit to the office. It's an option. Okay. If you want, yes. If you don't want, it's okay. So notice the difference. Mustn't is not the same as don't have to. Okay. Have to is this. Have to, must, equal. Don't have to, mustn't, not equal. Okay, remember that. Mustn't and have to, equal. Don't have to and mustn't, not equal. Okay, it's different. Okay, there's a big difference. Um, like when something is forbidden, mustn't. To say that there's an obligation not to do something, you use mustn't. You mustn't play here. I mean, you can't. It's not an option. You can't. He mustn't eat peanuts. He's allergic to. I mean, it's not an option. You can't eat peanut, or he can't eat peanuts. Okay, and we can also use can't. You can't go out tonight, or people can't smoke in closed areas. So mustn't is similar to can't, but mustn't is not the same as don't have to. Different. Okay, don't have to is an option. Mustn't is an obligation of something that you cannot do. Okay, remember that. Remember that. It's very important. Okay. And of course, like the grammar, the negative of the mustn't, you use the base form without to. The same with can't. And other expressions to express obligation, we be allowed to. Okay, the verb to be is, are. I am allowed to. You, we, they are allowed to. He, she, it is allowed to. Okay, so we are allowed to take an hour for lunch. We have the permission. We aren't allowed to leave early. We have no permission. Are you allowed to use the internet at work? Do you have the permission? Okay, so when we use allow is for permission. Do you have permission or not? And it's the verb to be. So what changes is the rules of the verb to be. You are allowed, change. Are you allowed? He is allowed, change. Is he allowed? So we change the position of the verb to be and the subject. You are you? She is she? We change the position, okay? And then should, as we mentioned before, is more a recommendation than an obligation, but it can still be used for an obligation, okay? But it's a very weak. It's more for an advice. You should study hard so you can pass the exam. You should see a doctor. The negative is shouldn't, okay? And again, you should you, and it's the same for all the others, okay? Very good. So now, very quickly to review before we finish, is when we talk about um, obligations and necessities, right? We use must and have to are very similar, but must is more for what I think is correct. Have to is more like a regulation or a rule. The negative of must is mustn't. The negative of have to is don't have to. Have to and must are the same. Don't have to and mustn't are not the same, right? After must, the infinitive, you never say must to, you say must only. Have to is for an obligation, and we use it, it follows the rules of the present simple, right? Do you have to, do we have to, you don't have to, or etc. The same with have got. Have got is the same as have to, but it's more British and a little bit stronger, and it follows the rules of the present perfect. For example, I have got to go. Have I got to go? Or I haven't got to go. Or she has got to visit. Has she got to visit? she hasn't got to visit, okay? So remember that have to follows the rules of the present simple. Do, you, don't, and doesn't for the negative, do or does for the questions. Have got to follows the rules of the present perfect. Haven't or hasn't for the negative, have or has for the questions, okay? Need to is similar to it's for necessities, and it follows the rules of the present simple. Don't need to or doesn't need to for the negatives. Do you need to, does he need to for the questions, okay? And then for things that are not obligated and are more like an option, we use have, we use don't have to. When, for example, like I said, right, you don't have to bring food, but you can if you want, okay, you decide. The negative of don't have to is not mustn't, okay, because mustn't is an obligation of something you cannot do. Don't have to, it's an option. Mustn't is more similar to can't, and we use it for obligations, okay? Something is forbidden. And finally, the last two are be allowed to or should. Be allowed to is like to have permission, and the verb to be is are, depending on the subject. Should is a very weak obligation, more for an advice, okay? Very good. Are there any questions? No? So for Wednesday, we're going to continue with the topic of dietetics. Okay, again, remember that we're going to start with topics and then with functions. I hope everyone had has a great Monday. And again, take all the necessary precautions. If you go out, don't touch your face, use hand sanitizer, clean your shoes, change your clothes, wear your mask, wear your face protector. Please, please take care and don't get sick. If you have any questions or want more comments that you would like to contact me, here is my contact information, my email, cjmflores@gmail.com, my telephone number, 947-390-436, and finally, my LinkedIn account, cjmflores27. Okay, I hope everyone, thank you for your participation here in Zoom, and thank you for your participation in the in the Facebook app. And I will see you on Wednesday morning. Have a great beginning of the week. Please stay safe and God bless you. Bye bye.